Sustainable communication is not bragging, it's storytelling. In an age of instant communication, where every brand, individual, or organization can speak up in seconds, telling one's story has become a vital strategy. Yet, the line between meaningful sharing and endless bragging is increasingly blurred. Many hesitate to talk about their achievements, fearing they'll appear arrogant. But is silence truly a sign of humility or a surrender of the right to narrate one's value journey? Sustainable communication isn't about visibility frequency, it's about authenticity, connection, and the ability to inspire over time. Sustainable communication doesn't showcase, it illuminates a journey, so others can see themselves in your story. Bragging is talking about yourself to gain attention. Storytelling is sharing to awaken something in others. Communication is a fundamental human need, but few are taught how to tell their own story properly. Many grow up in cultures where humility is prized, and speaking of one's achievements is easily equated with arrogance. As a result, they grow silent, even when holding stories that could deeply inspire others. This is not merely a personal issue, it's a cultural gap. That culture teaches us how to complete goals, but not how to narrate the journey. Yet in today's interconnected world, people remember not what you did, but what you overcame and what you learned. Sustainable communication is when someone shares not just what I achieved, but what I experienced, with all the tensions, choices, and insights. At that point, listeners don't just hear about you, they see themselves in you. The story stops being a badge of success, it becomes a bridge of human connection. This is not a communication strategy, it's a cultural act. And that act must be relearned, practiced, and honored. A sustainable story doesn't start with a list of achievements, it starts with honesty. Honesty about being unsure. Honesty about fumbling through decisions, fearing mistakes, not knowing if this was the right path. When a storyteller leads with real emotion, the listener tunes in with empathy, not judgment. This is the core difference between PR and storytelling. PR tries to impress, storytelling tries to reach. When you say, "We earned this award," that's information. But when you say, "There were weeks we argued so much we almost canceled the project," that's life. And that life makes others believe they can too. Sustainable communication is the process of reviving people's belief in themselves by witnessing someone else who dared to go first and speak truth. This cannot happen if we remain obsessed with strategy and format. It only happens through brave, real storytelling delivered softly enough not to impose, but deeply enough to awaken. A common misconception is that more communication equals more effectiveness. In reality, sustainable messages aren't those repeated most often, they're the ones people reflect on longest. In an age of short captions, fast videos, and clickbait headlines, many confuse visibility with value. But sustainable communication isn't measured by speed, it's measured by depth. A story may not go viral, but if it makes someone pause, reflect, or share it privately with someone they care about, it has fulfilled its purpose. Organizations often track reactions, yet forget to ask, how deeply did our message enter the listener's mind? Sustainable messages are those remembered a week later, not because they shocked, but because they were sincere. And to achieve that, we must write not to check off formats, but as an invitation. Would you like to reflect on this with me? Sustainable communication is not just a way of speaking, it is a way of representing ourselves to others. When we tell stories, we don't merely share information, we transmit images of the person we strive to be, the values we truly hold, and the community we wish to build. Stories are never neutral. They always carry a vision. And if not careful, they can also carry doubt. Stories that sound too perfect, too polished, often feel untrustworthy. Because people don't connect to perfection, they connect to truth. The more authentic a story is, the more room it leaves for others to enter, and the more it resonates. Listeners don't need a hero, they need a companion. That's why sustainable communication is the art of storytelling, not to dominate, but to invite. In organizations, storytelling isn't just a marketing tool, it's an essential part of leadership. Leaders who can tell meaningful stories often communicate vision more clearly, build stronger teams, and foster long-term trust. But this doesn't come from storytelling as a technique, it comes from living the story. A leader who shares their transformation journey of failing, being challenged, doubting themselves, makes space for others to open up too. Then, communication is no longer a declaration, it becomes companionship. In that relationship, the story becomes a vehicle for internal growth. Sustainable communication, therefore, is foundational to a learning organization where people don't just work together, but learn to truly see one another more clearly, more deeply, more enduringly. Sustainable communication doesn't come from saying more, but from saying the real thing, at the right time, to the right people, in the right way. It doesn't begin with technique, it begins with courage. The courage to tell real stories, to not seem perfect, to let others see our unfinished selves. In a world where noise is often mistaken for influence, storytelling is the quietest yet most profound way to build community. Not everyone has power, but everyone has a story. And that story, told with humility and sincerity, can inspire others to believe they can too. So if you're in leadership, education, or content creation, don't be afraid to speak about your journey. Tell it not to stand out, but to help others feel less alone. And if this message resonates with you, share it as an invitation to tell truthfully, tell deeply, and tell so that we may grow together.